I record is so that I can see how I do until the next time I do this. So I'm going to say welcome to Assistive Technology, and it's with a remote perspective, because with remote means at this point, any of us, we could be doing this as a hybrid where some of our students are on campus and some of our students are not, okay? We could be fully online, we could be in and out, so, and some campuses are totally open. But in one way or another, this idea of being remote has really hit us. So sprinkling in today will be this idea of coming from a remote perspective. All right, so let's get started. Let's see what that means. All right, so a little bit about me, okay? I have been an assistive technology specialist for probably 20 plus years, mostly in higher education and community college. But my background is in math and science, an emphasis in math and science is what I started out with. And I went into and got my education and special education degree in K through 12 and K through 8. But I've taught at community college in K through 12, mostly math and science. And I have what's called an ATACP. It's a certification through the Center on Disabilities conference at CSUN. It's an assistive technology certificate. And I also had an ATP from RESNA. So one of the things that's important to note here is that there really aren't a lot of degrees you can get in assistive technology. You sort of learn it as you go, all right? And now working remotely, which I've been doing full time since the middle of March, and the fact that some students have been remote, one of the things that happens in this constantly changing time is that we're problem solving and we're using adaptability, but it's in high gear. So we're going to take a look at what does problem solving mean. And it's kind of be sprinkled in here a little bit. All right, so why am I showing you a picture of food? Well, for me, this was the last time before I went to the conference on assistive tech in Anaheim, the week of March 10th, that I actually was able to say hello to people and see our students. Yes.
Sarah said she's waiting for you to let her in.
Oh, okay. Hang on a second. She shouldn't need that, but okay. Let's see. Waiting for her to let me in. Let's do this. Okay, so here we go. All right. So like I said, this was the last time I was in the office with real people in the real world. So it's all been kind of a, let's see, we got something in the chat here. Okay, don't worry about video and mic, Sarah. Just make sure that you can hear me. Let me know you can hear me and we're good to go. We'll worry about video and mic later. How's that sound? Just send me something in the chat that says we're good on that. Okay, do not worry. We will make this happen. This is why I love technology, right? Okay, so let's go on to a little housekeeping. We already talked about mics. Q&A, you can do it in the Zoom chat. You can send it in a link. You can use the link I sent you this morning for Google Slides. If you're on a phone, oh yay, good, you can hear. If you're on a phone, you're probably not gonna wanna have too many things open, but we're definitely gonna do Q&A. Because it's a small group, we can also do Q&A at the end with just chatting with each other, okay? So don't feel like that's the only way. We're actually gonna take a break before we get into assessments, which is usually kind of a bit of a conversation that some people have a lot of questions on. We're going to take a bit of a break just to give you a breather, probably about 5-minute break, just to kind of say, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, whatever. The other thing to know is that there's going to be a lot of materials and resources. I'm going to be giving you lots and lots of information. So after the webinar, I have some stuff I'm going to send out to you guys, so including Lisa, so that you will have this information. Because it's 2 hours and we're taking kind of a bird's eye view, we want to make sure that we are looking at this, you know, and then being able to deep dive. So our agenda, we're going to talk about what is AT. We're going to talk about why AT, why should anybody care? What's the point, right? And then we're going to talk about technology. And then we're going to bring it back to people, which is the people we're dealing with, and kind of what I call a strengths-based approach, all right? We're going to take a break after all of that excitement, and then we're going to come back and talk about the assessment process. Look at that from like 3 different ways and actually look at some assessments. All right, so that'll be neat. And as we're looking at the, and of course the end of the Q&A. Now, the reason we're going to be doing the videos is because if we were doing this in person, I would be bringing all kinds of tech for you guys to touch, to take a look at, and to be a part of, right? Since that can't happen because we're too far away, I'm going to show you some videos. And also keep in mind that the videos are terrific for when you have to know something about a technology that a student is using. If it hasn't happened today or in the past, it may happen in the future. This happens all the time. To me, it happened to me at a small school, it happened to me at a large university, where a student comes in with a, oh, this is something I'm using and it's something I'm not familiar with. It may not be something I have to train a student on, like say augmentative communication or a wheelchair that we're going to look at today, but it's certainly something I need to be aware of and understand so that I can work with that student when they're going to be using it on my campus. And really, it's a lot of information, but I like to break things down into kind of groups of 3 to 5. So really the 3 parts, you know, are the technology and the assessment, and then, you know, how do we get the person involved with that technology? So there's kind of 3 things. You know, there's the tech, there's the people, and then there's the assessment process. So like I said, although it's going to be a lot of information, what we're going to take is what I call a bird's eye view. And this sort of means we're going to look at it in a broad sense. And then later, if we want to, by looking at some of the resources I give you, you can kind of do a touchdown and kind of zoom in on some things. You can also zoom in on some things by asking me questions. All right, so let's talk about what is assistive technology. We're going to call it AT for short. All right, so it's been around since 1988. All right, and you know, anything this big is going to have a law attached to it, right? So we have the 1988 tech law, which feels like about 100 years ago. And it's basically interesting because it says any item, piece of equipment or technology product, whether it's commercial, whether you invent it, whatever you do with it, right, becomes a piece of assistive technology. Curb cuts, glasses, a highlighter, paper and pencil, you know, not using paper and pencil. And so it's really super broad for a reason, right? But the most important thing is we want to improve, we call the functional capability of the person with the disability. We want them to be able to do what they need to do in the environment they're doing it in. So we came up with IDEA sometime later, and it was the same thing, only to talking about children with disabilities. And the surgical implants thing is there. It may come up if you're ever looking at documentation for things like cochlear implants. That's a whole nother conversation. But suffice it to say, it's a kind of techie sounding, formal sounding technology related thing, but it's basically anything that's going to help that person. So I like to shift right to the why of AT. So why this technology and why should we care? Why this tech strategy, why should we care? And that's kind of where we want to get at the heart of it. Because if we're going to be recommending things for students to utilize, whatever it is, as an accommodation, if they come in saying, I have a problem, we want to get at the why. And that puts the person at the center. So this is from a gentleman named Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. And about 2009, so he's been around a long time, he did this thing called Start With Why. And so he did this why, how, and what. And he put why in the center because that's really what we care about, right? Everybody has a why. So what does he mean by why? He means we move from the center out. So why, if we can capture the why, that's our sense of purpose or belief. It's what inspires and motivates us every day to do the things that we do. And then we have the how. This is how things are going to get done, okay? This is the actions. This is some of the technology that we're going to use, right? This is how we're going to get from point A to point B, like we're doing today on Zoom. And then what? Everything that is tangible that can be experienced, also things that are an outcropping, a product, passing the class, taking the exam, right? You know, resolving that issue. What was the resolution of that? And so, but the why is what puts the person at the center of it. And that's really essential. And it's not as easy as you think to come up with your why. Okay. So my why, okay, my why is that I want to get the person the right tool so that they can be successful as a student, right? That's my why. Because I know that technology skills are essential. We found that out lately. All of us working at home in the office, maybe a hybrid, right? Sarah's on her phone, I'm on the laptop, Angie's in the office. And this increasing workload, a lot of us are feeling like, especially since COVID, we're kind of having to, like I said, be very adaptable, problem solve. We're on campus, we're off campus, our students are on campus, they're off campus. And we're really trying to feel like we're doing the best for them. And really, another really driving force in my world and in your world as a university employee is that there are studies that will tell us that only 28%, and that's students with disabilities, SWD, who have degrees are employed. So we have to look at what's going on. Is it the technology, but is it also that they're prepared for the world of work? So a lot of what we do with assistive technology is preparing them to utilize those tools even as they morph and change as they move towards grad school, internship, and employment, all right? And that's kind of the whole goal being the university. If you ever have the opportunity to do more professional development, you might run into what they call the Cook and Hussey book. I did it with my ATACP certification through the university, and I also did it when I got my assistive tech professional exam through the RESNA, the Rehab Engineers of North America. And it's very formal, but our goal is to recommend an AT device, anything that's going to meet their needs, that is consistent with their skills, and accomplish the unique functions. Again, this goes back to the individual. So this is why it's really important to go with why, right? So as we go through today, one of the things you want to start reflecting on is, why are you attending today's session? That's going to be helpful when we get to Q&A. It's going to make it more meaningful. And why is this technology stuff interesting or important to you? Even if you're not comfortable with it, even if it's new, why is it important to you? And a lot of times it's because it's a part of our jobs, right? All right, we're going to dive into tech. All right, so one of the things I do in order to draw people into technology is I take a tech poll, because I want to kind of get to the nitty gritty of where we are with technology. And right now it's what we personally own. So I will ask people, are you an Android person? Do you own an Android phone? You got the Kindle, you got the Kindle Fire, you got an Android tablet, you're using a Chromebook, that's you, right? Or are you kind of like Windows based on your technology, but you might have an Android phone? Or are you in the Apple universe? It's iPhone, it's iPad, it's a MacBook. I don't do anything else but. Or like most people, are we in this realm of we're kind of on a little bit of everything? And when you are doing your technology with students, this is what we're going to find, is that we're finding with students, individuals, is that they have a little bit of everything, right? So if they're nervous about technology and you're kind of feeling nervous talking to them, kind of coming to a common ground and doing like a little tech poll, we're going to go over this even more, and we're going to repeat this throughout the morning. But it's important to think about that, because we all have a relationship with technology. And one of the questions I ask people to think about is, what is the first thing you reach for in the morning, right? Is it going to be, it's usually your phone, either it's your phone, your alarm clock, or your phone is your alarm clock, right? What do you do when you're bored? What do you do when you're waiting for something? What do you do, when you want to keep on top of a situation with your family at work? You usually have your phone in your hand, right? Or checking emails throughout the day. But it's easy to get overloaded. So remember, it's easy to experience what I call the 3 F's when we get overloaded with technology information. And it's all clean, good fun for the 3 F's. One of them is flight. You don't know where you want to go, but you want to be anywhere but here, all right? Or you get upset, you get frustrated, you get angry. It's like, I don't know, I just need the solution. A lot of times students will do this. They'll either avoid us by not showing up, they'll become angry, right? Or they just accomplish nothing. They do nothing. They don't return phone calls. They don't accomplish the tasks we give them. So this is also happens with technology, especially when they're recommending it, right? So one of the recommendations is to look at technology, and we're going to take a look at tech categories, but look at technology and think about how is it going to maximize your time? What is the one thing that you can do with your favorite technology? And that's often a way to draw people in, and then that gets them to talking about what they're there for as far as accommodations as a student with a disability. So here are some tech categories. And this is going to get overwhelming for some people really quickly. There's wheelchairs, calendars and planners, alternative communication, AAC, switches, FM systems, video relay captioning, text to speech, speech to text, screen readers and braille, magnification, built-in, what's built into our technology, and apps, oh my goodness, right? Tons and tons and tons of these. So this is why I said something about having some videos, and I'll show you some things, and we can take a look at this. So in order to take all those categories and make them a little bit more manageable, I put things into what I call high tech, low tech, and no tech. Because what I've noticed is when I put it into high tech, low tech, and no tech, it's like, oh, wait a minute, it becomes more personable. So high tech, this is what I call anything that's portable, that's personable, that's wearable, and things that are kind of up and coming. Tablets are kind of sliding into what we call low tech. Low tech are those things we've had around for at least the last 20 years, right? Desktops, laptops, installed software, Microsoft Office, MacBook, Dell, all that stuff that most people are familiar with. But let's not forget about no tech. No tech is really important because it kind of brings it down to the level of, okay, let's just relax. You're not putting batteries into it, you're not rebooting it, you're not starting it, but they're still essential tools. Highlighters, planners, flashcards, and also what I talk about is people, right? We're the people. Sometimes it's important to have a human being involved in this to assist an individual. So we don't ever want to think that people are not essential, no matter how much we look at technology. The other things to think about with this are complexity and cost. And that will be sort of when we talking about things in assessment and start looking at technology, complexity, cost. Is it a free resource? Is there something free? Is it got a good, tutorial with it, right? So a lot of this is really important. So kind of bringing technology down to these three things. All right, so we're going to take a look at those technology categories, right? And keep in mind that in the chat there is a link to the slide if you want to ask questions, if you want to put questions into the chat for later, and if you want to put anything on the Google form. All right, so let's take a look at this. Mobility. Okay, so I'm showing you the picture of a wheelchair. Why am I showing you a picture of a wheelchair? You're probably never going to do a wheelchair assessment. I'm never going to do a wheelchair assessment. But guaranteed, we're going to get an individual in our office who is using a wheelchair. So having a familiarity that is a very personal item that has been selected especially for this person, and I actually have an example I'll send you of what a wheelchair assessment looks like. It's pretty complex. Any kind of mobility assessment is a very specialized one. Someone who's an assistive tech professional out of RESNA may be doing this. So you can see all the different things that go into even just a manual wheelchair, right? So complexity again, but if we bring it down to the person, we can say, okay, so we make sure we know the wheelchair etiquette. You don't touch a person's device. You try to get down to the level and sit or get down so they can see you at eye level. And be mindful that there are things about this wheelchair that are specific to this person. And that means something to us if it's a larger wheelchair, if they've got to get to a classroom, we're looking at accessibility for that in that environment. So again, the wheelchair is an important thing, and we can know about it, but we don't have to have really concrete knowledge. Okay. One of the areas that comes up for students as we start to work with them is organization. And even if we're not the coach, the academic coach, and we're not the tutor, it's going to come up for us because a better organized student is going to mean our job goes much easier. because they're going to be on top of things, or they're going to come to us when they're not on top of things. So if I had to give one resource for a student, and hopefully you can all see my screen here, I would say it would be College Info Geek. And this guy is hilarious and he's fun and he has so many resources. So this is one of those resources, okay, that I dearly love because he's got tons of stuff up here, right? He's got an engaging sort of humorous way of doing things. And he talks about himself. I used to be disorganized. I was a hot mess. And then he gets right into the why you must stay organized in college. So if students aren't listening to us, they may listen to somebody else, right? So, and he gets a little chit chat here and then he goes right into something free. I love the free. Here's a detailed guide. It's totally free. 5 easy key areas. So College Info Geek is a tremendous, he's got a YouTube channel, tons of resources. So if you're starting to get students that have different organizational challenges, you can get them connected to this. In particular, we're seeing more students coming into our office on the autism spectrum or with academic or life coaches. And this is something you can give to someone who's also supporting that student. It's also great if you're getting a lot of parents coming into your office and you want to give them something productive to do. They can assist their student in becoming more organized because that's something that they can do with the student outside of your office. And we are also seeing way more parents in our office, not just for freshmen, for lots of reasons. Okay, so that's our high-level view of mobility and organization, right? So now, augmentative communication. So if you've ever seen these devices, they are pretty complicated. So I'm going to go ahead, and if you don't hear the video audio, be sure to let me know, but I think I have my audio up. I'm going to go ahead and play this video because it has, in a few short minutes, it's going to have a tremendous amount of information for you about this device, and we'll talk about it after the video.
AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication, and it basically represents a way for people to communicate other than verbal communication. There's two main categories of AAC. There's low tech and high tech. Low tech can be something as simple as an alphabet board where people point to the letters and spell out words and sentences. They can have customized communication books where they could point to pictures, or it could be something like a dry erase board or a boogie board where they write. High-tech AAC is typically built on a computer. They are products that are considered durable medical equipment that can be funded through insurance. There are also commercially available products such as tablets where there are communication apps that are available to people. Anyone who has a communication difficulty can benefit from AAC. We see people here who have congenital diagnoses such as cerebral palsy, to people who have acquired injuries such as stroke or traumatic brain injuries, up to progressive neurological diseases like ALS or Huntington's disease. And really, your physician or the speech therapist that you're working with at the time can help you determine when the right time is to pursue looking at AAC as a solution for you. I met Jimmy about 3 years ago. He came to us actually with his communication device already. He had obtained it with a speech therapist that he was working with, and he was having some difficulty accessing the device. So he came here to get those access solutions. The approach that we take here in the Assistive Technology Center is a team approach. When someone comes in for a speech therapy referral, they may just see me, but we also have other therapists available, physical therapists, occupational therapists, and we also have a rehab engineer on our team. So we all collaborate together to determine what the best solution is for the patient. The process begins with a speech evaluation where speech, language, and cognition are all assessed. We then proceed to the AAC evaluation where we trial different types of technologies with the patient. If high-tech AAC is pursued, then we submit to the funding source for payment. And once an AAC method is obtained, we schedule follow-up therapy for training and to practice its functional use.
Okay, that was terrific. So you saw that you're not going to have to do an assessment. You don't know how to have to know how all of this works. That individual knows a lot about it. But if you had someone to come into your office using AAC and you wanted to think about how is this going to work in the classroom, how is this going to work at your testing center, how are we going to communicate when they come into our office? We've had students using these devices who actually have an attendant coming with them because they are not able to communicate, but they're going through the college, university, and their program and doing terrific. So this is where people, you can kind of see, you can start taking a nice deep breath, knowing that you do not have to be the person that knows how all this works. Okay, switch access. People tend to think of switches as kind of low tech, but this is a great way that individuals can utilize a switch with their phone. Happens to be an Android phone. So this is, again, a device on a phone, which is terrific. But this is how someone might communicate with their phone if they have really limited mobility.
Welcome to Switch Access. Switch Access is an alternative to using the touchscreen for users with limited dexterity. Turn on Switch Access in the Accessibility Settings menu. This will enable linear scanning and allow the use of a switch or keyboard to interact with your Android device. Start scanning by pressing the switch, and once the item you want is highlighted, select it by pressing the switch again. There are many hardware options available. Choose what works best for you. To change options or access the setup guide, select Settings within the Switch Access menu. This menu offers customized options to meet your individual needs. From messages to maps, access your world with a switch.
Okay, so I stopped it right near the end there because what I loved about this was I was imagining a student comes into my office, they have limited mobility, limited speech, but we need to communicate. How awesome would switch access be? And they can use their phones. So again, this is a way we can all communicate. And the message here is that people want to communicate using emojis, using whatever we all use, right? So again, even something as simple as a phone that they're familiar with and a small switch could give this person all the access they need. And having an understanding about what goes into utilizing this, and also assisting the student if they're not aware that there are settings within their phone that they can change. So I love this video because if I have a student coming in that's using either the video you saw before or this one, I now know what goes into utilizing it. And I also know the people I can connect with in my area if I have a question about how to assist a student in a particular setting on my campus who's using these devices, right? Okay, so FM systems. So there's a picture of an FM system. Every campus is different. This happens to be a K through 12 video. I did this for a very specific reason because students coming from K through 12 may be familiar with this, but this is also speaking to one of the struggles we have in assistive tech is cost. How much money do we have? And budgets are super, super tight right now. So what I loved about this teacher is that she did this video herself. It's super simple. And she talks about how she leverages this and why she uses it. And she talks honestly about the pros and cons. So I want to take a look at how this teacher explains an FM system.
What is an FM sound system? Basically, it's a type of technology that's used in a classroom where someone speaks through a microphone and then their voice is projected or amplified through a speaker system. If you see here, this is an example of a type of microphone that can be used. It's attached to a piece that hangs around somebody's neck. Once you speak through this microphone, your voice is then amplified and projected through a speaker. Here's an example of a speaker. And these speakers can be strategically placed within a classroom so that everyone can hear the sound coming out of it. Here I am wearing one of the microphones. The great thing is you can barely notice it, but there it is. My hands are free so that I can teach and explain things. It doesn't hinder my teaching in any way, which is a great thing. One con for this type of technology is that it's very expensive. It's not something that a teacher would go out on their own and purchase specifically for their classroom. But that being said, a lot of school boards do support this type of technology. So if there is a need for it in your classroom, chances are you most likely will be able to get a sound system for your classroom. For me, the pros far outweigh the cons in using a sound system in the classroom. It not only will benefit students with exceptionalities such as hearing loss or hearing difficulties, but it can really help any student in the classroom, especially those who have a fear of public speaking, who get anxious or clam up or get really shy and speak quietly in front of the class when they have to give a presentation. Given the chance to use a sound system, students can really gain the confidence they need in order to speak in front of their classmates. All in all, this is a great technology. I highly recommend it for students and teachers alike. Thank you very much.
Okay, so what I really appreciate about that was that she showed from as a teacher what she uses, that it's not going to get in her way. And so one of the things that we often hear from professors and instructors in higher education is, I don't want to wear the microphone, it's going to get in my way, or the interpreter is going to distract everybody, right? And so as we think about those challenges when we're introducing this into the classroom, we don't see it as often as we used to, but we still have faculty concerns. So faculty speaking to faculty is helpful, although this is the K through 12 situation. You can kind of take some of her gems in there and think about how would you speak to a professor who doesn't understand the FM system, doesn't understand why the interpreter has to be there. And it happens. It happens to me even at CSUN, which has been doing this disability stuff since 1984, something like that, and even earlier, it's going to come up. But this also helps us to create that relationship with professors so that we're knowledgeable about the technology that students are utilizing in their classrooms. And that's also a really great thing about knowing kind of an overview of all the assistive tech. Okay, video relay service. The last I checked, this was actually still an operating pizzeria in San Francisco, but it's a terrific way that shows a different setting other than school and how technology can really benefit lots of people.
Pizza the old-fashioned way. Beautiful sauce, fresh ingredients, and a wood-fired oven. But the San Francisco restaurant depends on a whole lot of slick new technology to survive. You see, Mazzeria is 100% deaf-owned and operated.
I'm definitely blessed to live in a technological world.
Like many restaurants, Mazzeria uses online ordering and half a dozen delivery apps. But the pizzeria can now accept phone calls thanks to a remarkable technology, the video relay service, from a company called Convo.
Hi, this is Melody from Mazzeria.
The customer actually speaks through an interpreter who signs in real time to the staff on an iPad.
Okay, sure thing. What would you like to order?
In the past, deaf people relied on email, fax, or something called a teletypewriter, also known as a TTY, to communicate from afar.
Back when I was growing up, we had a TTY, the relay service, but it was incredibly slow, and so both hearing people and deaf people just didn't have the patience.
With new video relay services, the deaf and hearing can communicate like never before. And get this, you made it all possible. A small charge on your phone bill each month goes to a federal fund that finances Convo and other providers of video relay services.
Yes, the margarita pizza with
The competition among these companies is actually quite fierce. So Convo has set out to distinguish itself with a deaf-first design approach.
Convo came in, and seeing that this was a restaurant operating at full extent, we didn't want to put in an accessibility machine, where it's a big, clunky machine in the restaurant. They have their identity, their look, their aura, their mood, and we wanted to see Convo be a part of it. But that all started with the lights.
Someone is calling. You can see the light is green, and this is how our phone rings. Hi there, this is Melody. How can I help you?
The video relay service is often so seamless that customers don't realize that the restaurant is deaf operated until they actually come in.
7 o'clock? Let me check. Hold, please. Sometimes the hostess will ask if they have a reservation, and they'll say, yes, I just called. And then they misunderstand, and they say, I just called. So they say their name for the reservation, and they say, how do you talk to us on the phone if you're deaf? And we explain the video relay service. It's really cool, and it's also a surprise.
That seamlessness and the clever design of services like Convo have been absolutely huge for deaf-owned businesses.
In the past, we missed about 50% of our calls. Now, with Convo, we've reduced missed calls from 50% to only 5%.
There's just one tiny problem with all this new technology.
I figure we have about 11, I'm not kidding you, 11 tablets right now. Imagine when it comes to charging every night so we don't run out during business. If we could invent something that didn't run out of batteries, I would be so much happier.
All right. So again, you notice me, I keep saying why. I'm a big why person. So what I noticed is that when I found this is that this came from Wired. That is a totally technology-based website and everything else, and e-magazine. And so in this video, you saw a lot of problem solving. You saw a lot of really innovative ways of doing this. And if you've never had a video relay, you got to see that the person's going to say, have you ever gotten a video relay call? So they're going to walk you through it as you're talking to the person who's deaf or hard of hearing. We have a really large student population who's deaf and hard of hearing on our campus. So we have a National Center on Deafness that handles a lot of those students. We do a lot of students in our office because we combine services sometimes, so we overlap. And so understanding how this works, but also seeing how it's going to work out in the real world, outside of just being, in a business, but out in the real world in the business. And if these folks are in business, it means that they're in San Francisco, which is probably on pretty much a lockdown like the rest of us in California. They're doing contactless delivery. They're probably not having people coming into their pizzeria anyway. So this is how this business is leveraging their technology to stay connected to the community, keep their business open, and really play up on the fact that they are really good with technology. The technology is set up with low-tech lighting, high-tech tablets. They just say tablets. They don't say a particular kind of tablet. And then leveraging that free resource to them, which is the video relay service. So I thought that was really fun. And I've had video relay calls, and I can tell you that the interpreter will give you every emotion that the person is talking about over the phone, just like the interpreter does in person, which is pretty fun. Okay, so we're going to take a break from the videos, and we're going to dive into some tech real time. So we're going to hope all of this works. Okay, so information processing. So this kind of covers a lot of areas of information processing, information coming in, information going out. So I picked some things to look at. One of them is read and write, which I think you guys have on your campus and are familiar with. It's just one type of text to speech. So the person selects the text and it reads back to them. Keeping in mind this is always built into all of our devices. And then voice recognition, speech recognition, speech to text, different names for it. So we're dictating. A lot of us have done this on our phones before. You know, when we have those long texts and we're just like, I don't think I can type one more thing. All right. And then the idea of Grammarly. Okay, so Grammarly has really come to the forefront because you can put it on any browser. It's great for grammar check, spell check, and it can also be used to sort of teach individuals as they're checking what their main mistakes are. So we're going to kind of start here and take a look at some things. Let's see if we can get up to the internet. Let's see how long this takes. Should be pretty quick. Okay. A little bit of delay there. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. You might have to. Okay. Make sure you can see my. Okay. So that seemed to be taken. Let's see if our, yep, there it is. Okay, so this is our department website, okay? And what we did was we took off our department website, we developed a website for Read and Write. So this is our department website, all kinds of great information, right? And what we did was we developed something for Read and Write. So we had them produce a video. We had students produce a video with students to give individuals an idea of what Read and Write was all about. So we found that in less than 2 minutes, we can tell somebody how Read and Write works.
I'm Jose, and for me, reading is hard.
My name is Bahar, and English is my second language.
I'm Robert, and I'm just trying to pass astronomy.
What do these students have in common? They all use Read and Write to help them read, write, and study. Read and Write can convert text into audio so that you can read along as you listen. You can even select an Australian or British accent.
Microbiology is the study of microorganisms.
If you're having trouble starting your paper, you can speak your thoughts out loud, and Read and Write will start typing for you. When it comes time to review your work, it can check for grammar and spelling errors, so you can feel more confident about your paper. As you study, use Read and Write's highlighting features. Read and Write can collect all the highlights and even create study guides for you. Want to give it a try? Add the free Google Chrome Read and Write extension. You can download the full version for free whenever you want.
Now, I actually read my textbook.
I feel confident about my papers.
I passed.
Read and Write is for all people, and it's used daily by millions of students just like you. Read and Write, making your everyday tasks easier.
Right, so we made that video because, and we did it in-house with students voicing it. A student did the video for us. And of course we added our own captions because we wanted to come from a student perspective and put a lot of the why in less than 2 minutes. Well, actually, definitely less than 2 minutes, 1:25. So one of the things about technology that this shows is that you need to have your why up, your why of why this thing is amazing to get the students on board, and also for them to see what it can do for them. And I think in this short video, it's been really effective for that. Right, so let's just take a look at putting some of this into place. Right, so if you're in a Google Doc, and you may already know this, you can actually go to Tools, and you can bring up voice typing. Right now, the thing to remember is that everyone's system is different. If you don't have your microphone enabled, you're going to get a message. And this is where kind of the follow-up with students that we'll talk about an assessment and training. No matter how well you show somebody how to use something, they're always going to come back with questions. So here's our Read and Write toolbar. I'm going to show you the Chrome version. All right, here's a Chrome version. So if you have a campus-wide site license for Read and Write, you likely have access for your students to get this through their CSUN or their OSU email. Oops, slip up there. And utilize this on Chrome for a lot of their online stuff. So I'm going to show you online because that's a lot of where our students are. And this is also free dictation software. So you click to speak and you just start talking. And usually what happens is you're not going to see a lot of punctuation like periods and commas. You're just going to see a lot of text coming up, and you're going to see a lot of a delay. Or maybe you're going to see a short delay. It just depends on your particular operating system and how quickly it works, and also how great your internet connection is. Period. New paragraph. Okay, so when we get this, you can see this is just a big long sentence, isn't it? There's just a lot going on here. So this is when students oftentimes want to be able to just type without having to type, right? I want to dictate, I want to dictate. So I say, great. I never argue. I say, let's just argue. I just say, let's just see what happens with that. So we have them play around with this. We click on play.
And you just start talking, and usually what happens is you're not going to see a lot of punctuation like periods and commas. You're just going to see a lot of texts coming up, and you're going to see a lot.
Okay, so I say I want, and so I can already see that first of all I have this on a slower speed to read, because I do that when I'm checking text, but you can see that there is no punctuation here, right? There's nothing going on. So, and if a person goes to type, you know, what's going to happen when they make a mistake, right? So text to speech, speech to text, read and write, compared with Google, you know, built-in talk typing, voice typing. And then if the student wants to include this, this is where Grammarly comes in. So you can see Grammarly way up here among all of my browser extensions, AKA apps. And Grammarly works really well because it's going to show me, and yes, I have a spell check and all that on read and write, but if I can see in line what my problem is with this particular word, or if I've done something wrong with a comma or a period, it's possible that Grammarly is going to check it online at least for a little bit. So pulling together this online experience for the student, saying, great, you're using Google Docs, wonderful. You know, but what about Word? Well, you can download it as a Word, and you can go on and on and on with how they're going to structure and utilize read and write with the dictation that's a part of voice typing. So again, there's voice typing, it's right there. And there's also keyboard strokes, and there's read and write. And if your students don't have read and write and they don't have access to it, there is a free version, but there are also lots and lots of other apps that I'll include in the resources that do a lot of what read and write does. And they're apps that work on lots of browsers besides Chrome. So that was sort of putting together information processing. How do I get the information out in typing it, right? How do I take it back in again and assess, is that what I really want to say? And then how do I make sure that I'm communicating at that university level with the correct grammar and punctuation? And so it's a complex process, but if we start to give them some basic tools that's kind of a 1, 2, 3, click, 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 they're probably going to be a little more on board with taking a look at this. And again, you notice things are short, doing it in short bits. I'm showing you something quickly. I'm showing you a short video. Tell me your thoughts. Often that's a really great way to get individuals into using technology. The other thing that we're finding is that note-taking is becoming huge for students, right? And there's lots of ways to do this. So one of the things that we're looking at is something called Glean. And we've been looking at it for quite a few semesters. So I want to kind of give you an overview of it. Oops, it's already open. There it is. I was ahead of myself. All right. So Glean comes with a great introduction video that kind of shows you what it does and how it works.
We know that it's really hard to take good notes and stay focused in the moment. So let's look at how Glean helps you take notes with minimal effort. To get started, click the New Event button. An event is where you'll record audio and add notes. Just give your event a title, then click the Record button. Glean visualizes audio on screen, so you'll see blocks of speech and gaps when there are pauses. This makes your recording really easy to navigate and lets you link notes or labels to specific moments you may want to revisit later. Let's see how that works. To add a text note, just start typing. Then click Send or press Enter to post the note to your feed. You can also post to your feed using Glean's quick labels. So if you hear something particularly important, just click Important. Add text if you want to, or just send it straight to your feed as a reminder for later. Adding a heading breaks up your recording into sections, whether you add text in the moment or leave this for later on. And switching to lightning mode lets you add labels with a single click or keyboard shortcut. When you're done recording, just click Stop. You can exit your event safe in the knowledge that Glean continually saves as you work, whether you're online or offline. The cloud icon will show when your changes have also been synced to the cloud, so you can access your events from any device. When you come back to your event, you'll feel pretty good that you have a complete record of what was said and your personal feed showing exactly what you need to focus on. Each entry is associated to specific blocks of audio and has a play button, so you can listen back and note down the information you need. Just fill in the blanks or edit existing entries until you have a super useful set of notes.
All right, so there she's showing you about Glean. I'm going to show you actually, let's see, I'm going to show you one that I did at a webinar. So everybody gets excited about Glean, especially us techie people, right? And you can actually bring your PowerPoint slides in if they're saved as PDFs. You can post them. And this is a really pretty long webinar that I was on. All right, and you can see I added some notes, and sometimes I just added slides and I can come back. The key thing here is that the individuals come back to their notes. That note-taking is an interactive process. And if it's an interactive process, whether they're getting a transcription, whether they're getting it because they're deaf or hard of hearing, or they can't take their notes physically, or they're doing shared notes, whatever your accommodations are for note-taking, the idea is to get the student to utilize the tool that's going to bring them back to their notes, because their notes are really important for them as they're moving forward for studying and everything else. So this is the thing about Glean, is that it looks very exciting, but it needs to fit what the student wants to do. And we have done pilots. What I would suggest with anything that's kind of new is talk to the folks at Sonocet and Glean about doing a pilot. And if you're super interested, they have a really great note-taking support network that anybody can be a part of, so I can send you that information. But if you're really thinking about what can we do for students for note-taking, how can we get students to be engaged, that's an area of need in our office, is to get students engaged, so they don't just think they're taking notes and then walking away, or not looking at it ever again, or recording and never listening to the recording, or even getting those notes from the professor, as an accommodation, and they're not ever looking at them again. Okay, and so that's really going to be important. The thing about Glean is it doesn't just stay here. If you get to the reading view, you can see you can copy or paste, and once you do that, you can actually go in and you can print this out, or you can put it in a Word doc, you can put it in a Google Doc. And the really exciting thing about Glean now is that they have collections. These are my collections. So I can now organize all of my Glean notes. So the thing about Glean is it's constantly being updated and changed. All right, so these are technologies that I like because they're dynamic, they're changing, they listen to us, they listen to students when we say we need something new and different. And so knowing what these products do now is not the same as knowing what they're going to do tomorrow. So don't let that kind of throw you a little bit, because the technology is always changing, it's always improving. But this is where I really rely on my vendors. This is a great example of me relying on the people that are making the technology. Do they have awesome tech support? Is there someone I can get a hold of? And that's true whether I'm working in any of the free stuff or the not so free stuff. And that's something that I really like to add in for those of us working in technology, is where are we going to get our tech support? All right, vision related. All right, these are the big ones that you may have seen. Zoom text, JAWS if they're on a Windows machine, okay, Braille, refreshable Braille, okay, VoiceOver if they're going to be on a Mac device. All right, so all of these things can be very expensive. Refreshable Braille is something that a student's probably going to bring with them in a smaller device. We also have a refreshable Braille display in our testing area. We have one. We've had it for a long time. There's no need to replace it. It works just great. All right. And I've included a video on how that looks that you can watch, information on JAWS and everything else. But what I wanted to show you was NVDA. And I want to show you NVDA for a specific reason. We may not watch this whole video, but this is a company that gets why they're doing what they're doing. And when a company has for me a good why, a good mission, a good vision, I know they're not just trying to sell me stuff, right? They're not just trying to sell me things that I want my department or my university to spend a lot of money in. So it's free, because this is what they're saying. We believe that every blind plus vision impaired person deserves the right to freely and easily access a computer. And these guys are both blind. I think sometimes they call themselves two blind guys. So they have this great video that we're going to watch at least in part, just to give you a flavor for this company.
In order to use a computer as a blind person, you need software that will read the text on the computer screen. NV Access is an Australian-based charity which was primarily set up to support and develop the NVDA screen reading software. NVDA is currently translated into 50 languages and it's used in at least 150 countries.
The students here all use NVDA on the computers. What I like best when using a computer is that I can communicate better with the social community. I can make new friends on Facebook, for example.
We feel that it's essential that people can access technology and reap all the benefits that it has to offer.
So he says, regardless of the situation that they're in. So this to me it's a kind of a long video. So I wanted to give you the flavor, the feel for it. And also it starts right off with what is a screen reader. So if you're talking to folks on your campus about getting something installed, whether it's JAWS, whether you switch to NVDA, wherever that is on campus where someone needs access to a screen reader for their course. I've had this happen in labs, and I'm talking just like labs for science, but things for like accounting and business and these sorts of things that I need to be able to tell someone across campus quickly, what is a screen reader? Why is this person using it? And why it's essential for their access and why I need their cooperation to get it put where I need to get put on campus. Okay, so all of this software you see here is software that I've talked with people on campus to get it onto campus, to get it in specific areas, and that can change from semester to semester depending on the student. So in particular, if you have students coming in to the campus this semester, these things are going to come up. The other thing about this particular software is it usually comes on the student's technology that they're bringing into our office. So oftentimes they're kind of the experts, but they may not know how to leverage it to the best of their abilities. So that's where I will do some research, or I'll connect with somebody I know that's really great at using this technology because they use it for themselves because they're blind, low vision, and they know how to utilize this technology. So I will cultivate those relationships. And then I have people ask me, and I'm not ever going to be the expert on this technology because I don't use it every day, but definitely those of us that have been doing it for a while, we get comfortable with it and we kind of have our go-to resources. Okay, so this is the stuff that's really coming up, is the built-in access. And you saw that a little bit with the video on the switch access. And it's across Apple, it's across Android, it's across Windows. And usually when it's on an operating system, you might see these two icons. One looks sort of like a little wheelchair, the other one is a person. So you might see these on, like, say, a Windows or a Mac machine in their settings. And this is where you can go in and you can really leverage those settings. Particularly important for your students using like Macs and iPads and iPhones is the built-in access is really, really tremendous and easy to use. The text-to-speech, the speech-to-text, the screen reading capability, the Zoom, it's built in. It's really easy to find and use. Android is getting better, and so is Windows. Windows has a lot of good things they're putting out there for magnifier and speech recognition, so it's constantly improving. And we don't want to forget about our browsers. The Edge browser, which we used to call Internet Explorer, Safari for those that are Chrome, that are Mac users, and then Chrome becomes one of the most often used operating systems or browsers, and a lot of times this is what students are utilizing. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at just Chrome and show you the amount of information that's available if you need to know. And like I said, don't worry about where to find this stuff. I'm going to give you the links. And the great thing that I found about links is that once you have one resource, it helps you to find other resources. You just need to get a start. So this is pretty much the accessibility products and features for everything Chrome and Google, right? Which is kind of like what I call the Google universe, the Chrome universe. So what's great is they give you the product so you can find out what it is, accessibility scanner, right? And then it says getting started with accessibility scanner. I find this particularly helpful because I have individuals that are coming into my office using Chrome on every kind of device, tablet, phone, laptop, desktop, but they're also using it on MacBooks, or using it on Chromebooks, or using it on a Windows machine, right? And then this gives me ideas about customizable buttons. Maybe there's somebody that needs customizable buttons, but the resources can give you an idea of what's possible out there. All right. Again, you see Braille back, you see live caption. There's so much out there that we're not aware of. So as we start talking about technology and assessment and the individual, we're going to break it down into how do you sift through all this information. Because for the last little bit here, I've been showing you tons and tons of information about technology. Videos, I'm demoed a little bit of it for you super quick, just to give you an idea. So at some point, people get on information overload, right? And so how do you get through all of this and all this information, right? And so that's why when we start talking about assessment, we're going to bring it back to the individual, but keep in mind the individual also includes you as the person in the disabilities office working with the student. You need to be able to have that support. You need to be able to keep it in simple terms, basic terms, and have a pathway for choosing the technology, for introducing it to the student, and to show them how they're going to use it in that particular environment. All right. So the last thing is apps. We've got Android apps. We've got iOS, which is Apple apps. We've got apps all over the place, right? Apps for everything. Right. And so one of the things about that is that how do you find apps that are free for your students, right? And how do they kind of navigate that? I don't know about you, but I'm not super excited about the App Store for either Android or iOS when I'm on an iPad. It's just super overwhelming and there's a lot going on. So what I try to do is kind of bring it down to, what about something that's free? Okay, so Android's a little bit tougher, so I'll start with that. Because Android is tougher, because it is, and Samsung makes it, all these different companies make it, so you kind of like, you're on an Android phone, goodness only knows who's making your phone, right? So one of these things here is you can do with your Android phone is you can actually add something called Apps Free, AF, and it will send you little reminders about what's free today. And what happens is that you can see that there's like a little line through it. So anything from 99 cents and up has a line through, because once you download it, it's yours to keep, which is great. I'm an Android phone user, so I have this one. All right. So I like the fact that I don't have to dig into all of this stuff in the Android App Store and the Play Store, because it's just too much. I mean, I don't get overwhelmed, but I don't have time for that. So that's why for Android users, I say, the Apps Free is a great way to introduce somebody to an app that I think would be really, really helpful. And one of those apps that's totally free, kind of plays off of this, is this one right here, which we're going to take a little look at. There it goes. Okay.
Technology provides tremendous opportunities to help people with disabilities. I research studies of a book and developing speech recognition technology. Speech recognition acts as a final between the soul that I could fulfill my dream of whole life. Because speech recognition to communicate with people. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing good. What can I get you today?
I would like tea. Like transcribe application that runs in Android. It provides transcription of speech for deaf in terms of hearing in real time.
Dimitri, we worked with the speech team to develop that technology, and Google has made strides in this in the past couple of years, but the app itself is what I've been working on. I'm not an Android engineer. I saw an opportunity for something useful and dug into that, and kind of evolved naturally.
Did I already mention to you I'm having one of my famous chili parties again this weekend? this was something that was born out of Dimitri's needs. All the technology existed already. It's kind of just a matter of hooking the wires together. Gallaudet University is the premier university for the deaf and hard of hearing in the world, really. We have been partnering with them to see how people are going to use Live Transcribe.
I started using it, and the first time was with my 2 sons. Both of them are hearing, and they can sign a little bit, but not a lot. So I use Live Transcribe with them.
Why did they say go?
Live Transcribe is changing the way we communicate with hearing people.
How about your masterclass?
I'm doing good.
We stop to review every day. Here you can see an example of multiplication problems.
Information is power. And Live Transcribe gives us deaf people an opportunity to be more empowered.
Okay, so one of the things that you see is that there's so many of these that that you can really definitely see that this is done with individuals in mind, right? And I added Otter AI, there's iOS, there's tons of, so all the links for all this stuff about how to find apps, how to find free apps is all going to be included in the resources, right? So what we're going to do is, I was going to take a break with before we get to assessment, but I think we'll take a break now because we're just about a little more than an hour in. So I have at about 12 after the hour. So before we get into persons with disabilities, so we're going to make a big shift. We're going to take all this information that I've given you about technology, and we're going to shift it to what does this mean for people with disabilities? And we're going to talk about people from here on out, and what does that mean, and get into the assessment piece, and how are we looking at people with disabilities, and how can we help them utilize those accommodations. So at 9:13, let's see, 11:13 your time, let's take about a 5-6 minute break, and we'll come back at about 9:19, 11:19 your time, 11:20. So go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back. Okay, so I hope everybody's back. All right, so it's 20 after, so we're gonna go ahead and get going here. So I like taking a break here. I kind of been playing around with the idea of a break, especially after all the tech talk, because now we're gonna get back to talking about people with disabilities and assessment. So we're going to kind of go through assessment and disabilities, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on the types of disabilities, because really when we start looking at them, we can how to do this with icons. We have a person with a cane, we have the ear with some little half circles above it, we have a person in front of a book of some kind or reading material with question marks above their head, an eye with a line through it. That seems a bit harsh, probably means someone who's blind. I love this one, looks like someone with a mobility issue, maybe an older person with a cane. Now we have a line through the ear, which probably means, deaf. We have the sign for interpreting. We have the sign we're most familiar with, which is the wheelchair. And we have a cross-section of a person with a brain, just a head with a brain, and then the Braille symbol. So that is to talk about, when we're talking about dealing with individuals with disabilities, we want to talk about their strengths. And we're not going to deep dive into all the science behind strengths, but one of the things is, why are we talking about strengths when isn't this about technology? Well, one of the things we know is that we want people to work smarter, not harder. And we want them to move on from, especially students, from what their documentation tells them they cannot do. Their documentation gets them in the door, but now we want to know, what do they do that's awesome? What are their goals? What are their dreams for their career? We want to get beyond that. So we want to have a way to talk about that. And so we also know that connecting them to their strengths if they are a real people person, if they are kind of a real outgoing communication people person, then maybe developing a study group is awesome for them. And they're going to do that whether they're online or not. If they're not, if they're more kind of like to work on my own, then maybe we're going to talk about technology that helps them do that, gives them that access, and they don't need a lot of people around them. They just can do it on their own. So we want to talk about what are their strengths and what works well for them. So also by getting people connected to technology based on what works for them and how they like to use technology, kind of going back to that poll earlier, we avoid what we call tech abandonment. It means all your hard work to give them the accommodation, to show them how to use it, right? You don't hear weeks and weeks later, maybe the next semester, oh yeah, you know that thing? It didn't work. And you're like, okay, but you didn't tell me. Yeah, I didn't tell you, like whatever. And so we kind of want to avoid those situations. And it's kind of a good thing if they get a hold of us right away when they're having an issue, right? So really simple, what is a strength? It's part skill. It's something that you're good at doing. It's something that you're born good doing, right? It's a talent that you have. And it's also a knowledge that you can use using your talent and your skill to do it even better. So right there in the center is a strength. What does the student already know? What are they good at? What's a skill? And what's a talent that they were born with, all right? And a lot of times it's communication. Sometimes it's they're really great at gathering information, a real learner, you know. So how do we help them develop that knowledge, that skill, and bring in that knowledge to really do well with it as an individual with a disability in the university setting? And then what technology seems to make sense for them, all right? If they're tactile kinesthetic, if they're visual auditory, you can even start with that. And that's kind of their talent. That's kind of who they are, okay? So we do something in our office called Strengths Quest. These are my top 5 strengths: adaptability, connectedness, relator, communication arranger. And this is the picture I chose. It's kind of a bendy sort of thing with a little bit of structure. So I'm not going to be your consistent, deliberative person who's going to just always, you know, be like steady as she goes and never want to change things up. I'm reliable, but I like things that change and move and are different. So if that's not a strength you have, then I can utilize your strengths, you can utilize my strengths, and we can collaborate together, whether it's professionally, personally, but you can also do that with your students, right? So if you're good at communication and your student isn't, you can help that student understand why communicating to you effectively, their needs and things that are working, things that are not working, and what they need for their accommodations is going to be really helpful. So we already did that. So we're going to get right into assessment. This is the other third piece. If it isn't about what about all the people with disabilities, I need to know what these disabilities are all about. If it isn't, oh my goodness, the technology is overwhelming, it's how do I choose the right tech and the right accommodation for this individual? And that's really going to be important. So as we go through these, I'm going to show you some ways of thinking about this. Okay, some models, and then I'm going to show you a couple of examples that I've done. Okay, so this is the HAT model, and it's called, you can see it's Human Activities Assistive Technology. Context is a part of this. So everything we've been talking about, what is the technology? What are they doing? You know, what's the context? Is it school? Is it work? Is it classroom? Is it lab? Is it at home? All right, the HAT model. And as always, you'll get a link with this, but sometimes having a visual is really helpful. Okay, other people prefer the SET model. The SET model is just that. It's an acronym for Student, Environment, Task, and Tech Tools. And Nina Zambala, I think, is the one who came up with this. She's been a teacher for a gajillion years, and she has a great website with some resources. It's kind of got a K through 12 focus, but again, you want to find the way you're going to approach the student, but you want to include these key things, right? All right, so this is my model. Okay, I talk to the student about what are they trying to accomplish, what technology do they already have. That's the first one we start talking about. What are you trying to accomplish? What technology do you already have? That's going to help guide me in as we're talking, but it's also going to build rapport, right? Because you want to really build a rapport with the student in any of these models. And then we're going to talk about the visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Are they strengths? Are they areas of challenge? what works for them, what doesn't work for them. So if someone is strictly a hands-on note-taking person, I'm not going to insist they use technology. We might talk about how technology, audio recording, or some of those other things I showed you can help them take better notes if that's an area of challenge, especially regarding their disability, processing, ADHD, mobility, okay? And the reason I focus on this is that I'm mindful of the fact that we don't have a lot of extra time. They don't have a lot of extra time. I don't have a lot of extra time. So my goal in picking the right technology or tool is really essential because students don't have a lot of extra time. So it needs to be something that's going to work for them, that's going to be meaningful to them. They also don't have a lot of money. So I'm not going to recommend something they have to purchase or spend a lot of money on. I'm also going to be looking for things that aren't going to cost my department a lot of money. Okay, unless it's absolutely necessary. So time, money, but the one thing we all have in short supply these days are what I call extra brain cells. So you see a picture of all these bubbles coming into this person's head. Now, if we looked at those bubbles carefully, we might even see some that don't even exist or maybe some that need to be added. So all this information coming into our brains, coming into our students' brains, and it has to be processed and produced. Whether we're a student or whether we're a professional, we have to take everything information, we have to process it out. So how can we do that? And a lot of times it's going to involve technology. Some of the technology you're using, some we've already talked about, and on any device. So my model is to really engage the student, build that rapport, and be mindful of those three things, that they're short on time, money, and extra brain cells. They're on information overload. So I keep bringing the conversation back to them. Okay, how does it sound? What are your thoughts? If I showed them a video, give me your thoughts. What are you thinking? Have I answered all your questions? All that kind of building rapport thing. And each one of these models, the hat, the set, and my model does that. I also want kind of an outline. So I'm going to show you visually in picture format what my outline is all about. So I want to take the tasks that they're trying to accomplish. I want to pair that with the challenges that they're finding for each task, because I want to get them across that great divide there. I want to get them to the other side. So again, making this personal. And this is the one thing, and this is also the one thing I tell them that I always need to know from them. They can forget all about the technology. I can answer their questions. We can go over it again. We can find out why the technology isn't perfect, but I need to know those things, okay? The other thing I want to talk about is their strengths. What do they do that is absolutely awesome? What are they good at? What is something that they do well? And oftentimes something they do well outside of school can figure into how can they take that and do well with it at the university level. Sometimes it's transfer students. What worked for them at community college, and how can they take that and transfer it to the new environment at the university? And what are their personal strengths? What are they good at? Okay. And then this little symbol kind of shows an idea and a pathway. And you get this idea that's ever changing. So this is the student and us together taking a look at how we can work together to find that pathway through the ideas and the things that we need to do for them to be successful. And we're getting from point A to point B, but it may not always be a straight shot. And when we bring technology into it, okay, there's all the different devices, right? Which can be overwhelming, but we also want to keep in mind that our students are using all kinds of platforms. So as we're talking about their technology, we're also going to find out, okay, you're doing these tasks. What is the challenge? What tools do you already have? Let's go off over that. And if we're going to recommend anything, we want to be thinking about in terms of high tech, low tech, and no tech. We don't want to go back to all that huge category list I gave you. Oh my goodness. We don't want to think in total of all the technology that's out there. We just want to think, is this a high tech solution? Is this a low tech solution? Is it a no tech solution? And how does it tie back to what the student's already using? And then how does it tie back to what we as the university can offer them? Right, we can offer them, our students can get Office for totally free, Microsoft Office, they can put it on 5 of their devices. It's kind of between high tech and low tech, but evidently it's something everybody needs, so the university provided that, right? So once you start to get your information, if you want to develop a plan, you kind of think of it very simply, and we'll see that in a minute, in some steps. So we have to get them the tech. Either do they need the tech? Do they need new tech? Do they need to use their tech better? Is it something the university is going to provide, right? And do they need training and support? This doesn't have to be super formal. This is, again, going back to what are you trying to accomplish, what's getting in your way. But if you think about the next steps when you're working with someone is, how are you getting this tech? Well, once you've got all the information that we talked about, and we'll see it in my examples, how are we going to get this tech to you? Do you already own it? Is it a matter of making that work better? What training do you need? And then when I'm thinking of what training they need, I'm thinking, gosh, what do I need to know to help them with their training? Do I need to do a little bit of research, and do we do it together? Do I do it, then provide them with that information? And then follow up. Sometimes students will follow up with me, and sometimes I'll send out and use a mail merge in the semester, especially I'm using it this semester since it's a new environment, and I'm going to send them with a mail merge, which basically means I make a Word doc, they get an individual email, but they all get the same email. And that way students can get back to me and let me know if they're having any issues or problems. We do this a lot in our office. We do it with our alt media process, getting students their books in an accessible format. We do it, our counselors do it. A lot of us do this follow-up. We're finding really unique ways to reach out to them. And it takes a bit of time, but the follow-up is nice because it keeps us from waiting until it's like a 911 stat situation and we're doing triage. It sounds like we're doing kind of this whole, emergency situation. So if you're thinking about all the work that's going into this, think about it. Everything I've said, and I'm going to show you these assessments, think about how it's going to benefit you as the professional dealing with these students to do the best job you can, and kind of front loading a lot of this and engaging the individual and kind of having a plan so that if the plan doesn't work, or it's something student needs something different, or something happens during the course of the semester, at least you have a foundation to work with, right? So assessment and action, it's what I call collaborative problem solving. This is where it's really interactive, and you're going to bring the individual in to the process, okay? So I get a lot of questions about this. I won't go into it now because that's not what today's about, but I'm happy to answer questions about it. I use something called OneNote for all of my information on students, and I also use it for all the handouts. I kind of call it my electronic file cabinet. So our campus went paperless quite a bit. Paper doesn't do me a lot of good right now, so I'm glad about 8-9 years ago I went to this. What you're seeing in front of you is tech notes from Patrice. So a student and I will sit down and we will talk about their tasks, their challenges, and their tech. This is an actual student, blind, low vision, right? So I have to get from the student all this information you're seeing there. I have to get what is their vision, what is the limitation, what are they using? I'm thinking, gosh, what are they going to use in the classroom? During lecture, what are they going to use across campus? Are they going to use campus technology? Are they going to use their own technology? Is it going to be a combination? How have they used it in the past? How do they usually get their textbooks? That's a big deal, right? And noticing I highlighted, but is having issues, okay? So I'm listening for those things that the student's already using, but I'm listening for where are the gaps. Some students don't have any of this information, so you have to tease that out from them. And starting with their technology and how they're using their technology is usually terrific, or what they've done in the past, whether it's high school or community college, right? And we talk about all of this because all of this is important to me. You can see that they're going to use a CCTV or a computer. So yes, they have very limited vision, but their preference is to be able to see that test under a CCTV enlarged, and they can even use a handheld magnifier, or they're going to use a computer and enlarge it. So our testing folks need to know, and we need to make sure that we're communicating if this is going to be a need they're going to have, as well as what are they going to need in the classroom. So one of the things that we do is we work together to determine the accommodations, right? See, audio recording, we do shared notes for the students, use of laptop for note taking. These are the things that are going to happen in the classroom so that the professor knows that the student is going to be using our shared notes process to find a note taker, to share notes with them, that they're going to be bringing technology into the classroom for recording and laptop. And if there's a problem with that, then that's where we step in and work with the student to help the professor understand that this is our accommodation. It needs to happen, but to also listen to any reservations the professor has about that, but realizing that it really is a partnership between our office and the student and the professor or the department. And then computer without spell check and alternative testing. These are our testing accommodations. I could go into how we're doing this now that we're in the land of COVID. Right now, the scribe is going to be someone in the home. If our students are probably about 90% at home, it's going to be somebody who's there with this person. And honestly, that's a whole nother situation, right? Computer without spell check, you know, we can monitor that. But that could change too. Maybe a student's going to want to change those things. But these are kind of the solutions. These are the solutions that we have from our office, but now we want to take a look at how is this going to look. So sometimes I call this strategies and implementation. You're going to see that there's a lot of things that a student needs to do. So when I'm talking about next steps, I'm not talking about what I'm going to do because I'm going to definitely do it. I'm talking about what the student and I have agreed that they're going to do next. Okay, that they're going to check with me if they need something else, right? That with the shared notes accommodation, you know, they've got the link, I provided in the link, that who's going to make the announcement? What are you going to talk to your note taker about? What are you going to talk to your professor about? How are you going to leverage technology? And notice, check in with Patrice is there again to remind them. And these notes here, these next steps, this goes to the student when we're done. I'm going to email these next steps to them from my email to them, which is super easy to do with OneNote, so they know in their email what we talked about, super short bullets because nobody wants to read pages and pages, and we're going to talk about the things that are going to happen next. Tech access on campus, excuse me. We're going to talk about what's available to them, what I can do for them. Now, this, if I say I will provide, that means the student hasn't decided if they're going to use this. So if the student seems reticent, I use the word explore a lot. Think about, those are the things I use to tell them this isn't the end of the conversation, it's your decision, and that's okay. And then textbooks in all accessible format. I tell them how to start the alt media process. I'll give them more detail about that they need to complete a form and return it, that what we need from them to do their books, right? And that we have it in our office, in our process, it can take us up to 6 weeks. So we work on the order they're received, and we have the syllabus because we may have to get them the materials just ahead of the syllabus. So a lot of this depends on the student being engaged with us on an individual basis because everyone needs something a little bit different. So, and this, I picked a blind low vision because this is usually a student that's going to take a lot of time, but you can apply this and transfer this to any student with any disability if you think about it in terms of some of the models that I gave you. The other thing I do is I create little handouts. So I tell them these are all the audio recording options that you can have, and I give them links to using different things. And I also tell them what, again, reminding them what happens and how you have to let your professor know that you're not asking for permission on our campus, you're letting them know, just like you do your testing accommodation, what's going to happen. If the student is particularly interested in something, then I provide a little handout for something really specific, like say for OneNote, okay? And show you quickly, I'll provide this information for you. I did get an update from the student, and it came fairly early in the semester. I highlighted some of the important things. So these are things that I have to pay attention to, because if they're telling me I'm having problems with it, then this is what I have to get back to the student. Because if I don't get back to the student, it becomes an access issue and it becomes a problem, and we want all students to have their access because it's the right thing to do, because it's the law. And now this person says they're going to request with the alt media process. So I make sure that I'm on top of that with the person that handles that, and we collaborate. And then he talks about, he's spending a lot of time on things. Remember, time, money, and extra brain cells, right? So they're going to keep in contact with me, the student and I, you know, he's finding things, he's finding solutions, right? And in case you're wondering how all this happens, right? It happens for me, this is usually the first 3 to 5 weeks of my semester, right? And you can see that it gets really busy. So from basically from 8 throughout the day, I'm doing, make this a little bit smaller, I'm meeting with students. So this is me meeting with students pretty much Monday through Friday, back to back. And I'm working with students on their scanning. I might have to meet about a software pilot. That went back to the Glean. This was last year when we decided to do a pilot rather than purchasing the software. And then a Zoom. I'm doing a lot more Zooms. But you can see that I did leave time for lunch. I try to do that. But my day is pretty full. So I'm mindful of the fact that we have a lot to do. All right. So we're going to about wrap it up. So the other thing to show you real quickly is that I actually do tech consults for faculty and staff. And so this is a super, super formal form. This may be one you like, so I'm going to send you this as one that's filled out, as well as one that's kind of blank. So you can see this is a very formal assessment that HR wanted, and there's nobody else on campus that can do this. So this is something that I work with HR on to do a really formal assessment. Some people are more comfortable with the formal assessment, and that's fine. You can see the set model, the hat model, you can see my model in here. All right, and it's very much engaging the individual. The more limitations, the more issues, the more tasks and challenges we're going to have to identify. But keeping it really simple, and then if we go to the bottom, overall recommendations, I put it into a nutshell, and I say, this is what you're going to do, and this is what I did. All right. And so just so you can rest assured, you should never have to do a wheelchair assessment. The wheelchair assessment is 6 pages long. That is super, super long. So you don't have to worry about doing a wheelchair assessment, because that is definitely not your bailiwick, right? All right, so let's do this. All right, so I'm going to bring myself back online. We're not going to go into resources. What we're going to do is we're going to go into, let's see, did you guys see the Google slide? No. Okay. Okay, how does Live Tribes and you guys can unmute if you want to ask questions and talk. No worries. How does LiveStrive compare with Microsoft Translator? You know, I haven't done a side-by-side comparison, and that's a really good way to do that. If Microsoft Translator was on a phone, we could do like a one-to-one. So Live Transcribe is basically for your phone, but I think all of these are very much competing with each other to have the best, like, stuff on the planet, right? They all want to have the best stuff on the planet. So this is definitely one where we would definitely do a side-by-side comparison. And of course, now you've given me that idea, so that's something I'm going to have to do, right? I'm going to have to get in there and take a look at that. Okay, so let's see. All right, so let me go back to, let's see. Okay, so let me go to escape here. All right, let's go to, let me go back to, let's here, let's go, okay. So did you guys put anything in on the Google form? Let's take a look. On the Google form. All right. All right. Nobody added anything on Google form. Okay. Did you add anything on chat? No, okay. Okay, no questions. Okay, so if you guys, Angie and Sarah, if you want to unmute yourself and bring up your video so we can have a bit of a chat before we end today, that would be great. There, I see Angie. Are you there, Sarah? Okay, not, okay, let me check, see, check participants.
They can't hear you.
She can't hear me, or you can't hear me?
I can't hear her.
Right, so something's going on with your audio, Angie. We're not able to hear you. If you're on your phone and you don't pick the right audio, let me check participants. It shows you with the microphone, but it doesn't show you, oh, you're on a laptop, okay. That sometimes will happen on a laptop that, and it could be within your, I've had this happen for myself and other individuals when we're on Zoom. Sometimes it's your mic input, the boom isn't up, the boost isn't up. So go ahead and switch to your phone, whatever you need to do. All right, so since there's only 3 of us, and Lisa's kind of listening in. So Angie, is this kind of the first time you've seen a lot of this information?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and I know you've been doing intakes, correct?
Yes, I have been.
Okay. So what are some of your thoughts on looking at this information?
Well, it's definitely a lot of information. I do like all the resources that you showed us. I was particularly happy when I saw the technology for the blind people. That made me smile.
That is